It's a December night in 1995, and a man and a woman walk down the dimly lit Fayetteville, North Carolina road. A vehicle cruises by, the occupants turning their heads to the pedestrians, almost as if scoping them out. The vehicle fades into the distance. Down the road, truck circles back, stops a short distance from where they saw the pair, and two of the hop out. They walk in the pedestrians' direction. 3 shots ring out, then another 3. By morning, the sloppy murder of the black pedestrians has practically been solved already. But the revelations rocked the military, put a new scope on the potential infiltration in the ranks. Skinheads. Gangs were one thing and were known to have a presence and actively recruit in the military, but the presence of race-hate groups was a better-kept secret. The skinhead movement began in 1960s Britain as a working-class subculture, largely influenced by Jamaican music and style. It was about pride, rebellion, and unity across racial lines. But when the culture made its way to the U.S. in the late 70s and early 80s, it split. On one side were traditional skinheads and sharps, skinheads against racial prejudice, who stayed true to the movement's diverse roots. On the other, white power skinheads hijacked the look and twisted the mission into a hateful one. Through the 1980s and early 90s, these racist factions gained ground, fueled by racist music, prison gangs, and street violence. Hence the common perception of the word skinhead today. The rise of the skinheads coincided with assaults, desecrations of sites, firebombings, and high-profile race crimes. The murder tally was as high as 41, 22 being minorities or homosexuals. By December 1995, the skinhead population was around 3,300 across 40 states, and some of them resided at Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Fort Bragg is home to the U.S. Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division, a decorated division that fought Hitler and the Nazis in key World War II battles. At Fort Bragg, 3 friends: James Burmeister of Thompson, Pennsylvania, Randy Meadows of Milky Illinois, and Malcolm Wright of Lexington, Kentucky, had met and bonded over their mutual hate for minorities. They were known racists. In 1995, the Defense Department policy barred troops from actively participating in such groups, but it didn't ban membership. Whether the 3 were radicalized on or off the base remains unknown, as only Wright's hometown of Lexington, Kentucky, had any history of racial extremism. Still highly likely they became sworn racists on base. Considering neo-Nazi presence was an open secret at Fort Bragg, there was even a recruitment board encouraging soldiers to join the National Alliance, a white supremacist organization. Notably, Wade Michael Page, who went on to kill 7 people, and himself in 2012's Wisconsin Sikh temple shooting, was also stationed there in 1995. He had been radicalized at Fort Bragg by December 1995. Burmeister had a particularly bad record. He was known for often saying that blacks could be rounded up to Africa or shot, and had pictures doing a Nazi salute in front of a Nazi flag. With others, he had received an army reprimand and counseling because of his extremist views, and his security clearance had also been revoked after a fight with a black soldier. When they stood trial for what they were about to do, Burmeister's ex told the jury that Burmeister's skinhead affiliation started in early 1995. He hung a Nazi flag in his room and listened to songs like The Third Reich, a white power anthem with lyrics about killing Black and Simon. It was also revealed that Wright told his former fiancée that he had claimed to have killed a man in Florida 2 months before. As a crew, the trio had been involved in the beating of a black man, who they believe was gay, spraying mace in the face of a black woman, who reportedly sold them drugs. They beat and sprayed mace on a black prostitute. It would seem that they were slowly pushing the boundaries of the violence they were willing to inflict on local minorities. But one conversation would take things to the final level. Burmeister Meadows and Wright were drinking heavily one night at Burmeister's trailer. Wright had a spider tattoo on his elbow and bragged that it signified that a skinhead had killed a black person, the teardrop of the skinhead world. All the murder talk had Bernie Master riled up. He wanted to up his rep and respect his wealth. Before the 3 left for dinner, this wasn't just a night out drinking, Burmeister was looking for a target, a way to earn his tattoo and prove his loyalty to a culture of hate. The moment he slid that 9mm into his belt, the line between talk and murder was officially crossed. He grabbed a 9mm pistol, stuffed it in his belt, and told the other two that he might earn his tattoo that very night. They likely didn't take him seriously. After dinner, they got some more drinks off base, after which they decided to harass some local blacks. Something they had done previously, just never to a murderous extent. Middles drove while Burmeister and Wright scanned the streets for a place with dim lighting and anyone dark-skinned. While they cruised on a dirt road through a black working-class neighborhood, they spotted a black couple walking. They circled the block possibly to check for potential witnesses. Meadows stopped and the other two got out. Before they did, Burmeister and Wright left their flight jackets, their jewelry and wallets in the car to prevent being ID'd. Burmeister then told Meadows to wait for them for 15 minutes, but to return to the barracks if they weren't back in 15. A few minutes later, Meadows heard 3 shots, silence, and 3 more. Jackie Burden and Michael James lay dead, with 5 headshots between them. Miss Burden was also shot in the back. It wasn't a manhunt or any intensive detective work needed, because Meadows, probably in shock that his buddies actually did it, flipped immediately. He waited like they had agreed, but the other two didn't show up. However, Fairview PD was there in minutes. By 12:15, they found both victims dead. Meadows parked and approached the police. Lights and sirens. Middles first told the officers that he lived in the neighborhood, and he told the officers that he had gotten lost after driving down side streets to avoid the cops because he was driving intoxicated. The officers didn't buy Meadows' story, so they questioned Meadows some more, and he took the officers to the car where they found 2 flight jackets with German military insignia. Right there, Meadows confessed to the whole crime. After he took the officers to Burmiss's trailer, where the night had begun, it turned out that a taxi driver picked up Burmeister and Wright after the crime and took them to the address of Burmeister's trailer. Neither had money to pay the fare, so they wrote their names, social security numbers, and military units down on a piece of paper and gave it to the taxi driver. They told him they'd pay him later. Both were arrested a few hours later at the trailer. When investigators stepped inside that trailer, they didn't just find a crime scene. They found a radicalization hub, Nazi flags, bomb manuals, and hate literature laid side by side with a smoking gun that shattered the military's ignorance. When the cops searched the trailer, they found white supremacist literature, a bomb-making manual, a Nazi flag, pamphlets on Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, a magazine called Resistance, and a VHS tape of natural-born killers. The search also produced a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, the murder weapon. Michael had 3 children, and his wife told reporters that her children didn't understand what was going on, given their limited grasp of racist hate. In court, Randy Meadows will be the star witness. He testified that Bernard Master told him in jail that he had killed the 2 people, even joking that he had done a community service, and they put him in jail for it. Burmeister and Wright didn't yet know that Meadows was talking to the cops. Burmeister's defense argued that there was no proof that he fired the fatal shots and that he was too drunk to think clearly. They even brought in the pharmacologist to testify. The case drummed up a ton of publicity, and his defense argued that all the media coverage prejudiced potential jurors, inhibiting a fair trial. His defense also tried to place the blame on Wright as the triggerman. As for the jurors, they sought the death penalty. They were keen to pass the message that society was tired of that kind of ignorance. 5 white people have been executed for killing a black person in the U.S. since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. And if all 12 jurors voted unanimously, then Burmeister would be the 6th. And in the end, he dodged the death sentence by 1 vote. The female juror that held out did it only because she didn't believe in the death penalty. Burmeister received life without parole instead. As for Malcolm Wright, because of the publicity stemming from Bernice's conviction, his trial was moved to Wilmington, 100 miles from the crime scene. Wright was sentenced to life without parole as well. Meadows received a much lighter sentence because of his cooperation. In light of the incident, convictions, and a wave of civil rights protests. Army Secretary Togo D. West Jr. initiated a worldwide inquiry into extremist activity on U.S. military bases. It revealed 22 soldiers in the 82nd Airborne Division had active, passive, or formal links to extremist groups. 9 of the 22 faced discharges or trials, while the other 13 received lesser punishments. A 3-month investigation found that although extremist groups were active in towns near Army bases, they weren't targeting soldiers for recruitment. And out of 7,600 soldiers interviewed, about 100 admitted to being part of white supremacist groups. About 3.5% said they had been approached to join one after joining the military. The report forced the Army to take action. They made clear rules about involvement in hate groups, better screening during enlistment, new training to help soldiers suss out extremist behavior, and guidelines for commanders on how to handle similar situations. Burmeiser was incarcerated at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. Before long, he was attacked by black prisoners. He was moved to prison in Colorado in October 1998. As a result, he died in a Missouri prison hospital in 2007. And as for the military, despite the last-minute policy implementations, the incident spoke to a lack of cohesion in the very diverse armed forces. After all this happened in 1995. Not 1925, nothing had been done. When things were clearly getting clanny at Fort Bragg, and it culminated in a cowardly double murder. As far as public perception of the military, the actions communicated, "We won't act until something very public happens." The dark events at Fort Bragg left a scar that history will never erase, a chilling reminder of how deep darkness and hatred can go, even inside the most protected walls. If this investigation opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because tomorrow we are uncovering another dark case you've probably never heard of. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.